about 68% of VIP clients or VIC clients say that if their client advisor were to leave to go to another brand, they would follow that client advisor.
The best sales advisors are fully aware of how their customer engages with life and where their kids may go to school. What boards do they sit on? What fundraisers do they attend? Mm-hmm. Deep knowledge about your customers is so valuable. One thing that the store manager told me that I had never heard anyone say before is that everyone in the store has the ability to give away one free product every day. What that does, it puts the power in everyone in the store's hands to create exceptional experiences.
Welcome to our first ever CXG podcast. The topic today is centered around how to bring out the best in luxury retail, talent, and bridge the individual ambition with brand needs. My name is Silvia Coleman. I'm the head of market intelligence and the VP of strategic growth for CXG. CXG is a global consulting company specializing in customer experience. We work with a lot of luxury and premium brands. And I'm so excited because here today with me is our esteemed guest, Ron Thurston, who's come here all the way from Miami. We're very excited to have you with us.
Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you so much. A very warm welcome. Ron, I don't think you need much introducing in retail circles, but I'm going to make an official introduction anyway. Ron is not a one-time, but a two-time #1 best-selling author, keynote speaker, and passionate advocate for human potential in the age of AI. Ron has over 30 years of experience leading teams for companies such as Apple, Gap, West Elm, Tory Burch, Bonobos, and Saint Laurent. So you're spanning kind of the gamut from tech to fashion, from premium to luxury. And Ron has seen firsthand that the future of work isn't about technology. It's about how we lead as humans and how we position ourselves as humans. Your first book, Retail Pride, I would say is a Bible in retail circles. It was a rallying cry for frontline excellence and really owning your career and stepping into your career. Your latest book, which has just come out last month, called Human Pride, builds on that. And it's about optimizing your human potential in a digital job market. It's, by the way, available on Amazon. It's a bold call to action for anyone navigating career change, leading teams, or trying to future-proof their career. And we here at CXG just recently published a highly anticipated and also highly acclaimed in the press report called The Advisor Effect, Reimagining Client Advisors as Key Competitive Assets, which you can also download on our website. Just like Ron's book, Human Pride, it's a timely work that deals with the challenges we are faced with in the luxury industry of identifying, recruiting, training, developing, and then most importantly, retaining top talent. Top talent being such a crucial linchpin to success for brand growth. And so Ron and I have, over conversation, over coffee and via Zoom, kind of unearthed and uncovered that we basically are tackling the same problematic or issues, if you will, coming from different vantage points. To arrive at solutions that we find have a lot of overlap and synergy. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right into that topic with the first question, which has to deal with this great disconnect. A lot of brands have found in recent years across retail that traditional hiring isn't really working anymore. And we have begun realizing that also in the luxury industry. We talk about in our report turnover rates of between 40 and 60% for retail at large. In luxury, it's lower, between 15 to 25% anecdotally, but that's still too high, right? So something seems to be broken. Yeah. What's broken in this relationship? How can we fix it?
Wow, such a big question to start, Silvia.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on the inaugural podcast for the show. This will be a very fun conversation because I agree with you. You do global surveys about how people feel at work, specifically in retail, an industry, as you mentioned, I know so well. It crosses so many different kind of emotional reactions to how we experience work. And part of the challenge that brands have had, I think for quite a while, but it seems to be becoming more urgent, is that retail was often perceived as kind of an accidental career. The subtitle of my first book is The Guide to Celebrating Your Accidental Career. And it's because often retail becomes this kind of fallback, or I started to do it in college and discovered I was actually really good at it, or financially it made a lot of sense. And so it's fun and it's engaging, and you get to work for beautiful brands I've had the pleasure of working for. But the next adventure within a career in retail often seems mysterious. How do I become a leader? Do I even want to become a leader? How do I continue to grow my personal wealth? What does this look like for, a dedicated career? And where I think we often fall down is clear career paths. So some of that research that's done is, why did you choose retail? Why is the turnover so high? It's often because they don't see a clear career path to next. And that could look like full-time versus part-time. It could look like a leadership role. It could often look like a corporate opportunity. How do I become in buying, planning, merchandising, styling? There's so many paths that this industry offers. We want to make it as clear for stores that they can also get there at the same time.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. We talk about that a lot in our report, sort of this employer value proposition, right? That it's not just about brand prestige and brand name, and you talk about that in your book as well, right? But it's a very holistic proposition you have to make, and how you design a career path and career growth for individuals is part of that. It's not a one size fits all approach.
Yeah.
It's sort of like individualize it, recognize the individual as they come in with their unique background and the context and their education, and kind of try and personalize it to them to give them the best avenue.
Agreed.
So this whole idea beyond brand name, what is it that really attracts top talent today? Because I think we've moved away from this notion of, well, it's your brand image and your prestige, and that's enough. It's no longer enough.
Yeah.
And tech companies and even some financial services companies have gotten wise to this. They're hiring top talent away.
Yeah.
So what should modern luxury brands, in your opinion, offer to compete with tech companies for the best talent?
So often the best experiences when I speak, I'm lucky enough to get to speak to so many of these people in stores. I host, another show called Frontline Fridays, which is very much about just the work of the front line. So I hear it both in luxury, both in contemporary, some big box. I like to understand it at a really wide scale. And one of the things that they're looking for most directly of why people stay or maybe choose a brand, number one, it's their experience as they're being hired. Mm-hmm. So today, the landscape of how we hire, it's part of why I wrote a very significant part of Human Pride is actually for the job seeker, mm-hmm. because the job search has dramatically changed because of AI. And in many ways, it's actually created great efficiencies. And in other ways, it's taken the human out of the equation of hiring. So in luxury, you're looking not only for specific competencies, but you're looking for storytellers. You're looking for people that embrace the brand, people who can engage with strangers and in a romantic storytelling way. When I was running Saint Laurent, we really spoke a lot about the fact that the store is very cold. The store was mm-hmm. black and white marble and chrome, nowhere to hide. The fitting rooms were all mirrors. Some of that design language has changed over the years, but at the time they were very cold, and intentionally so. Was really celebrating the product. But mm-hmm. as I opened stores all over the world, my goal was to hire people who were so warm and so engaging and so connected, and their ability to storytell about why the store actually, where the marble is from, why the shelves are set at a certain angle. Every piece of the history of the brand should be told through the team. And so part of that hiring process is that journey of hiring people who can have the ability to do that. But it's a long answer to your question of ultimately the person who has the most impact on your experience as an employee is your direct supervisor. And often in retail, that's the store director. So exceptional store directors are the foundation, and I will say this without exception, the foundation of exceptional retail, including luxury, are exceptional store directors who run multi-million-dollar businesses in four walls with large teams and high revenue expectations. They're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're HR managers, they're in charge of merchandising, they operations excellence. These people have extraordinary skills, and in treating them as such and paying them as such is the number one reason why often there's turnover at the store, is either that role is open or that person in that role hasn't been fully trained and developed to be an exceptional leader. And there are many ways you can do that to improve someone's skill set through all kinds of competency-based training. But those two things, in my opinion, have dramatically changed how we think about retention, the hiring journey, how that looks and feels, and then ultimately, who is your direct supervisor? They may not know the C-suite of any brand. They will not know personally the creative director. They will not know the senior leadership team. But every day, they have the opportunity to be coached and led and trained by exceptional store directors. And I think there's always an opportunity of how can we do that better? How can we find the most talented people? And often compensation is a conversation about how to do that really well, and where we can do that even better is a massive opportunity.
Compensation is always a conversation.
Always
right?
a conversation, yes.
Yeah, but interesting that you mentioned store directors, because we dedicated a section in our report as well talking about how brands should really lean into and leverage this role, because it's so important, to your point. And also the increasing importance of the assistant store manager who's there to sort of deleverage a little bit the store manager and free them up. These store managers have to wear so many hats and fill so many shoes, which actually brings me to my next question. It's not just the store director that has to fill all these shoes and wear all these hats. It's also the advisors.
Right.
In our report, we have this funny picture of a sales advisor kind of standing there overwhelmed, ripping out her hair because she has to do all these things. She's a multitasker, multi-hyphenate talent. You need to be a storyteller. You talk about storytelling a lot. You need to be a digital native. You need to be a cultural interpreter. You're a psychologist. You're a best friend. Maybe you're a confessional.
Yeah.
You're definitely there to sell, right? You're a sales expert. You're cross-selling. You're upselling. So the same or a similar question, how can individuals develop such a diverse skill set? And then how can brands support that evolution and guide them in the right way, again, in a personalized manner to the individual? So
interesting, because this is where I've really leaned in on the story of human pride. And so as I know you've read some of it, it is very much a self-reflection exercise. It is saying, I am fully dedicated to this career as a retail professional or as a professional in any category. But as a retail professional, I know that my skill set to be successful needs to look like this, exactly what you described. I need to be confident and the ability to speak to strangers every day, which can be really challenging. The general public at large can be intimidating and scary and often not nice. And so how do you overcome that? You may need to speak multiple languages. You may need to be very aware of what's happening. You think about the luxury retail landscape, creative directors, store design challenges, where new stores are opening, where are people living, how is your customer actually engaging with the world? Where do they spend their holidays? How do they travel? Where do they go? So there's the best people in luxury, the best sales advisors are fully aware of how their customer engages with life and where their kids may go to school. What boards do they sit on? What fundraisers do they attend? All of this deep knowledge about your customers is so valuable. And so the brands that could say, I want to support and and often provide resources for the team, the store team, to be their best. And that could look like additional training. It could look like sending them to the events where their customers are. It could look like maybe it's travel. It could look like taking clients to fashion shows. There's a long list of things brands can do to make sure that the team is as engaged with the brand as they are with the customer. And that builds loyalty, it builds trust, and that synergy, that part of it is a brand responsibility, but I also think it's a personal responsibility. You can't leave, I don't believe you can leave a company and say, I didn't receive any training, therefore I'm going to this company. I'm such a believer in raise your hand, ask for more, request what you need. If the company continues to say no to your requests, even reasonable ones, it may not be the right place to work. But if you don't say anything, do anything, ask for what you need, then part of that is your own personal responsibility. So I don't always say turnover is 100% the company's fault. I think we today have to look often self-reflective and dig a little deeper of, am I the best version of myself that I can be in this role? And that's a very powerful place to sit when you choose to work for a brand, that you've done your own work, not waited for the brand to do it for you.
Right. So yeah, self-reflection, and in any job, right, is important.
In any job.
But this is a two-way street, and it's a kind of a feedback system where
Right.
Feel free to knock on the brand's door and say, hey, I feel I'm lacking skills in such and such area, or is there something you can do for me to empower me to, strengthen a certain skill, whether it's tech or whether it's brand or product knowledge, whatever the case may be. It's interesting. It actually brings me to my next question, because when we talk about these skill sets, there's a certain skill set that can be learned, and there are skill sets that we think we are born with.
Yeah.
It's debatable. Something can still be learned, even if we think it's finite. But this whole idea around soft skills and human interaction and human touch. I was just in a conference last Thursday. There were probably at least a dozen panels. In every panel, and most of it was around finance investing and sports investing, but every panel talked about AI. How, we really need to lean into it. Don't be scared of it. Bring your people along as leaders, and, make sure that they're not afraid, that they're on top of it, and help them realize it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not the only solution, and they won't be replaced. So AI versus human touch, right? What is the future of luxury service going to look like as AI transforms retail, both backstage and in customer experience? How do we maintain that connection with luxury clients, VIP luxury clients especially demanded? So what skills here should we kind of work on as individuals?
So it's so fascinating right now, because every conference I attend is also the kind of shiny object of new technology. And one of the things that I love most about the retail industry is the fact that it's exactly the same today as it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It is a place where people meet in a community to come together to purchase goods from an owner or a founder or from a business. And it is about human connection, and it is about relationships. And that will never change in retail. What changes is all the support things that can be done behind the scenes. So you think about the most incredible abilities to mobile checkout. Mobile POS has changed the landscape in many ways of retail. This kind of traditional cash wrap or, where do I check out, doesn't have to apply. Often it can just be done on your phone like you do in an Apple store. It doesn't require assistance. But if you're in an Apple store and you have questions about how to use your tech, Apple has an incredible Genius Bar and a store full of people who are highly trained on product knowledge that can answer any question. And if they can't answer it, one of the things that's important about Apple that I preach often is Apple says, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. There's someone in the store that knows the answer to that question. So what that does is kind of lower the temperature of I need to be an expert in everything. And so that, AI drives mobile checkout, but it can also do things like checking in with your team about how they're feeling. So there's new technology that's being used in more big box businesses where someone clocks in for their shift and you immediately get a text message that would say, "Hey Silvia, how are you feeling today?" From a red face to green face, where are you? Well, I'm kind of yellow today. And so there's a level of engagement that happens through technology, through AI. Well, tell me why you're feeling that way today. Is it something that happened in your shift? Is it your supervisor? Let's dig a little bit deeper. So at scale, you can use AI to understand how every person in the field is feeling on any given day. And there's no human that can do that. There's other technology that's being developed that I'm staying very close to that is using listening device. And so then I'm listening, and this could be very useful in luxury. And as I get more specifics, I'll be sharing it. But this ability to listen to all of your interactions and provide feedback based on your skill set. Well, if you had done more of this, less of this. So again, no human can stand by you all day, every day, and listen to how you work and provide meaningful coaching. It can be done, in moments, but at scale, it's actually not possible. So I love that we could say we can improve our human experience and our human pride and optimizing our human potential via the technology tools that are available to us at scale. That's the most powerful piece, because then you go back to the beginning and say, but ultimately, I'm building human-to-human relationships, but I'm using technology to support its efficiency. That, to me, is the most beautiful way that our industry is evolving.
Yeah, we talk about that. Interesting. You should bring that up because we talk about that in our report as well.
Yeah.
We talk about emotion AI.
Yeah.
We talk about how AI can alter environments, how AI can help from the client advisor perspective, sort of, rid you of mundane routine tasks, and it frees you up to really lean into the customer experience and be a better human vis-a-vis your client.
Right.
And so it's exactly what you're saying. It's a tool to be better as a human, better at your human connection. I think it's something that can also help us become less transaction driven and more transformation driven and relationship focused. And you talk a lot about relationship building in your book, as do we. We talk about it, for example, in the context of, for the luxury industry, very important at the moment, the VIC client, about 2 to 5% of all luxury clients worldwide drive about 40 to 50% of global luxury sales. That's staggering. We know that about 68% of VIP clients or VIC clients say that if their client advisor were to leave to go to another brand, they would follow that client advisor. So what it tells you, back to relationship, is the relationship in this instance is more important to these people than the brand or the product. That's a staggering realization, right? Yes. So if you think about that, and you think about how you build lasting professional and client relationships, how do we create career paths that benefit both the individual in their growth as well as create this lasting brand loyalty?
Yeah, and I've seen exactly what you're describing, Silvia. I had never seen a statistic until I read your report, but it's very true. And I do think that there's an assumption that every time someone starts new, that you have to start at zero. And often in luxury, you don't, because you are so connected to those VICs and that business, and you're extremely valuable to companies. Similarly, losing one of those client advisors that has a multi-million-dollar business where 40+% of it could be lost. Some of it will always stay, because they're also loyal to the brand. They love the aesthetic, the creative direction. But if you have a multi-million-dollar sales advisor where you could potentially lose millions of dollars of sales, why would you let that person walk out the door?
Absolutely.
And the reason that they walk out the door often is because they're not being heard. And they would say, I speak to my store director, I speak to their supervisor, I've tried everything I can, and no one will solve this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a product assortment. Often in my career, I spent decades just traveling stores, visiting stores, speaking to teams. In luxury, it's often product related. They know exactly what their customer asks for. They know exactly what they're going to buy. Just give me what I need to make you money.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems so clear. Give me this, I will make you X amount of dollars. And so the answer to your question, in my opinion, is very much this kind of collaborative relationship that requires brands to provide the resources and tools and product in order for them to deliver the results that they want. Because luxury is also generally commission driven. And so personal wealth and personal compensation is linked to product. It is. So if you don't give me what I need to sell, I'm going to take home more money. I'm going to take home less money. So there is this sense of, I give you what you need. You deliver back what I'm expecting of you. We're both happy. Everybody's winning. There's no reason for anyone to leave, change. We retain the VICs. We provide the product to the VIC that they need. Everybody wins. And, I describe that and it sounds so simple, yet I don't see it done consistently. And when I speak to those multi-million-dollar sales advisors, and I've led many of them myself, it's the number one reason of I couldn't build the business that I wanted to build. So I went to this brand that said they could. Doesn't mean that it always happens that way, but it does. It requires work on both sides.
Both sides. Yeah, it seems when you said it like that, it seems like such a simple formula.
Right.
But it comes back to, it is a simple formula. I told my brand what I needed. Did they listen?
Right.
We found that a lot of the reasons for the significant turnover have to do with feeling undervalued, or maybe a different way of putting that is to not being feeling like you're being seen or being heard. And not feeling, therefore not really feeling motivated to do much more, right? It's also like when you're not being listened to, your motivation will drop off. Eventually, you'll end up going somewhere else. So it's really important, this viewing the brand and the individual as partners in
Great.
This relationship, right?
Very
really,
much so.
It's a quid pro quo.
It is, but I don't think that that's always the perception of what it is. It is often you work for the brand and therefore you will do what I ask. And I think if someone's going to deliver for me a level of volume and client retention, VIC client retention, and revenue expectations, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that person gets what they need and is feeling great about their work. When they get that text from Ron that says, "How are you feeling today?" I want green, smiling, happy face. And if it's not, I actually think it's my responsibility to say, well, what are we not do? What am I not doing as a leader? What are we not doing as a company or as a brand to provide more green, smiley faces on our teams? It's again, self-reflection.
That's a very good segue to my next question, actually, about green smiley faces, which is a very, very Gen Z and millennial expression of happiness, right? In a way, to talk about the generational gap. And I know you address it at length in your book. I did read that section.
Thank you.
And we also talk about it a lot, because what we observe is this tug of war in terms of expectations between client advisors and brands. Those client advisors very often come from a pool of Gen Z, the Gen Z and millennial generations. They expect flexibility, they want meaning, they want purpose. There's a great book written by Daniel Pink called Drive. It talks about mastery, agency, and purpose. That's really what people want. And then the brands who are expecting that you're on time, that you're always available, that you always exude sort of this air of exclusivity and are up to standards. There's a tug of war going on. There's a push-pull dynamic. And it's really hard to figure out in a holistic sense how to bridge this gap without compromising either side. We talked a little bit about it already, but maybe you have some other, views on that as well.
I think it's exactly that. It's, leadership. If I were to go to 30,000 feet, as a leader, it is your responsibility to discover what your team needs from you every day. And so it isn't about an annual review or a quarterly touch base. Every day, everyone on your team needs something different from you. And when I think about that in terms of retail, that is more true than ever because the business is so fast every day. And I joke, but I actually think it's true. You're kind of in retail, you're only as good as yesterday's sales flash. It's true. You move, that's it. Like, we had a great day yesterday. What did we do well? Why did we do well? Who was here? What happened? What were some of the customer stories? Like, let's understand why we were successful. Today, we weren't, and why. So there's this necessity of speed in feedback and coaching, and that this multi-generational workforce requires you to be actually even better at that skill because different people need different things from you. They're at different points in their career. And when I talk about kind of career journeys and why people leave, different points of your career, you change jobs for different reasons. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it is related to leadership. Sometimes it's about scheduling and flexible work. There's so many different reasons why someone may need a different opportunity. But every day as a leader, it's our job to find out what they need from us. And that's a real skill.
Yeah, it is. And I think it seems to me there's a real opportunity in terms of this bridging of the gap for not a lot of people talk about this, but this idea of reverse mentoring. Mentoring doesn't have to go top down. It can be the other way around, sort of peer to peer. How do you create environments, situations? You talk about Wellness Wednesdays, I think, right? How do you bring all these generations together where they can feel as part of one community, doing the same fun or, maybe educational thing, whatever the case may be, together so that you kind of strengthen those ties between the generations as well.
It's providing the space and the time to do that. So when I talk about speed of retail, the speed of feedback, often that speed creates an environment where we put everything that's not about learning and development and training and that reverse mentorship, we put it as nice to do. And I would say all of this work is actually the most important work you can do. So can you have consistently, I learned this at Apple better than anyone, a daily download morning meeting consistently every day at the same time, not always the same agenda. I think that becomes really boring really fast. But how connected are you to the team in the store every single day? And every leader of the company should be involved in those conversations because you're prioritizing human connection. The team sees you prioritizing their experience versus the customer. And I think every great customer experience starts with the fact that you've prioritized the team. You've made sure they had what they need for all the things we've been speaking about. And then they go out and they deliver exceptional customer experiences. No question. But everyone on the team watches the leaders of how they prioritize time and money. And it's very interesting to see, done well, teams become unstoppable. Not done well, turnover begins and customer service drops. And I know that sounds like a lot of responsibility for leadership, but that's what you signed up for. And
Yeah, I think the whole idea of role modeling, right?
yeah,
And sort of showing that you're part of the team. And we talk about this at CXG, the employee experience is mirrored in the customer experience and vice versa.
very much
You
so.
really very seldom have like um, you know, an environment where the employee experience is negative and then outstanding results. Maybe sometimes, but in the long run, that probably isn't something that's sustainable.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to work on that. We talked earlier about this idea around measuring how somebody feels. We also nowadays, given that we're so data and tech integrated, data analytics helps us with this in AI. We can measure emotional intelligence. We can predict how any of us will behave. Everybody, through data analytics, we know how we behave and how we will behave in the future. The most valuable skills, again, tech is great, but they remain human, right?
Yeah.
So how can individuals develop and demonstrate these qualities, these more, I want to call them soft skills, right? Being personable and being able to connect to brands when it's really, that is what brands desperately need today.
I think part of it, as we've discussed, create the space and time for that to happen, that emotional connection. So if you are in this constant to-do list, check, go faster, do more, deliver this differently, that I think very dated leadership style of do, give me more, that's not providing the space for someone to say, you know what, I'm actually a yellow leaning to orange and red face. I keep going back to this very simple idea, but if you don't take the time to understand how people are feeling, then they will never be the best version of themselves at work. And because you don't know what they need in the kind of time, resources, training, coaching conversations, you don't understand how to deliver that if you don't know how people are feeling. And there can be this tendency to make broad generalizations. That's why I like the work of your survey so much, because it goes under like how people very much feel at work. And every brand makes assumptions. Well, they should just feel this, or why don't they do this more, or wow, they all do this so well. And that's never a winning formula to making assumptions without having the data to back it up.
Yeah, measuring. And you mentioned, you talk about that in your book, the need for good KPI. Not all KPI will give you what you need. I mean, I think also another thing, allowing the space, but also recognition. And it doesn't have to be always grand goals that are achieved, but like little wins, a little bit of growth every day, check-ins. Praise someone who did well or who tried that day at the end of the day in front of their colleagues or on some kind of message board. I think these are very nice community-driven sort of celebratory moments that make people feel good.
True. Quick side story. I was just in London to speak at a conference and did a kind of tour of Oxford Street and Bond Street and spoke to several teams. I was in the Lush store flagship on Oxford Street, I believe. And Lush is UK based. So, I mean, they were just 3 stories of like on their game. But one thing that the store manager told me that I had never heard anyone say before is that they have everyone in the store has the ability to give away 1 free product every day. And what that does, it puts the power in everyone in the store's hands to create exceptional experiences. I don't have to ask my manager for something. I don't need approval. I give you full approval to do whatever it takes to make sure that the customer has an exceptional experience. If you want to give something away, we encourage you to do it. And I think and the product's we're not talking luxury. So, but it's the mindset of what that says to a team that, wow, I have the power to do something special. How am I going to do that today? What story am I going to tell? Because no doubt tomorrow morning when we have our morning meeting, someone share a story of the product you gave away yesterday, and who was it and why did you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon that energy, and I could feel it in the store, those of us that are a feeling of a well-run store, you know exactly how that feels. The store was very well run on a very busy day with an exceptional store manager that had 200 people working in the store. And like, that feels great. But I said, when I asked how, it was one of the ways that the company had given power to the team to do that.
Yeah, they gave them agency. The luxury version of that is Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
It gives each employee, the company gives each employee $2,000 at their disposal to solve any problem as creatively as they would like.
It's amazing.
And then when it's super creative, it creates legend and lore, and it's talked about, and it's passed down to the next generation of teams and so on and so forth. It's very, very powerful tool, I think.
Think of the loyalty gained from that. A small dollar amount equates to thousands and thousands of dollars of loyalty built in.
Yeah. And from the client's point of view, people love surprises, and it doesn't matter that it's a little, inexpensive, but it's a delight, and so it works, right? It's a great thing. All right, we're coming up to our last question, talking about the future in 2030. We had a section dedicated in our report where we featured a little bit. We like to extrapolate into the future. Tech was a huge part of that for us. We talked a lot about AI. The future, most certainly buzzwords like community, user generated and user-driven content, social commerce, ESG. But from your point of view, in terms of the relationship between luxury talent and brands, how is that going to evolve? And what should individuals be preparing for, and how should brands be positioning for that future that's around the corner in 5 years?
It's so different every day. That's the fascinating part about this, is that the future generations that are growing up with technology in a way that some of us never did, that their expectation of what they need from work is going to be very different, luxury or anything else. So again, it's our responsibility to go back and learn from them and say, how do you use technology? What part of it would improve your work? What part of it is an obstacle? How much time do you need? And I think some of our old kind of paradigms about no cell phone on the floor, or you only use technology for this purpose, has to evolve, or we will feel in luxury often like where people, younger generations or future generations, won't gravitate toward because they haven't moved forward with the time. And I don't know that, big box retailer, there are others that I think have a lot of work to do to make this best place to work. Luxury has the advantage of it being very aspirational, very high potential earning income. There's a lot of really important reasons why luxury is the ultimate expression of working in retail, but we have to move technology forward to support the experience of future generations of how they actually use it, and future customers. It's the same. Customers expect you to know at all times, where is the product? If it's not in the store, how quickly can I get it? A full sense of inventory, full sense of efficiency and speed and knowledge. So everything that the customer expects, things about delivery, problem solving, you should have all of that at your fingertips immediately to solve. Not ask your manager, not go in the back for 15 minutes and try to find the history of your order. Everything you need, this is one of the future technology, should be available on a phone, on a watch, on an earpiece to solve every problem that the customer may have asked you for.
Yeah, so it seems like really staying on our toes.
Yes.
Nimbleness, flexibility, adaptability, everything changes so fast, and just sort of keeping up with the pace of changes is super important. Ron, it's been such a pleasure. Very fun, very informative. I learned a lot. I hope our audience has learned a lot. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Being here.
Sylvia.
All right, so that's a wrap on our first episode. If today sparked some questions, additional discussions, or is making you think of things a little bit differently, then that's a great start. Please remember to subscribe. And until the next time, keep learning and stay curious.